SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Buy or sell at Mid-Delta's auction on Friday, October 17th. Tractors, combines, and more with live online bidding at mdauction.com. Call 662-299-2414. Mid-Delta Auction, across from Cannon Motors.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
Whew, man. How many Fridays we had? They just keep on coming at us because we've been on the road this week and last week. Tupelo week before, and this past week, the beautiful Mississippi Gulf Coast. That's where MidDays has been broadcasting from. Our journey began in the river city of Moss Point, right there across from the City Hall, surrounded by those classic vehicles for cruising the coast. And then Wednesday, we made our way over to Biloxi. At the Biloxi Town Green, our normal perch there for cruising the coast. And then yesterday, at the Coast Coliseum, Bakari Auction Company and Gulfport Luxury RV Center, our sponsors for that event. How about that pink Cadillac that came through? That was pretty cool. Our content director, Alex Payton, captured a photo as it was making its way through the line to be auctioned. And you posted it in the background of our video broadcast. I looked at that thing, it kind of walked around and said, how in the world did they park this car? You couldn't park that in a standard parking spot today, could you? I think it would extend over the lines.
It's about the same length as some F-350s.
I mean the width. I'm talking about the width. Like the width of the parking spots in our parking lot here at the Farm Bureau building. I'm not sure it could fit between them. And if it did, and there were vehicles next to you, you couldn't open those doors.
Fit. I'm pretty sure it could fit in the lines just barely.
Barely, right. Beautiful vehicles, though. No doubt about it. Some cars are about as you could put in the trunk, right? They're about as big as the trunk on that thing. Gigantic. And sitting in the back seat, I mean, you're like 20 feet away from the front seat.
Well, there was one opportunity yesterday that I didn't take simply because I was trying to spare the feelings of the person standing behind you.
Yeah, okay.
Because there was an AMC Gremlin that rolled behind you.
That's right.
And right before I turned on the mic and the light turned on for me to crack a joke about, hey, Gerard, look out, there's a gremlin behind you. This nice-looking lady walked up and was standing between the camera and the gremlin. I'm thinking,
oh, boy.
I don't know which direction the PA speakers are pointed for today, so if I say this, am I going to get in trouble? Is somebody going to get offended because I called him a gremlin even though I didn't?
That's awesome. And then we had the Thunderbird come through right at the end there, and I think you described it as peach-colored, right?
Just the way it looked coming through the camera. I mean, but that's why I asked, because I understand the way color and cameras, and sometimes you get a little wonky.
Alex suggested it was salmon. It could go either way. I just think peach is more appropriate for the old Thunderbird, the classic Thunderbird and Salmon. Beautiful vehicle, though, man. So I told you that after you told us that that's your dream job is to be a driver of cars being auctioned off, and I was walking around the pink Cadillac on the break there, and I struck up a conversation with the driver. And, of course, I asked him what year it was, not realizing that those placards, the descriptive document, if you will, one-pager that sits in the windshields of those vehicles being auctioned off, has that information. And so I looked at it. 65 is what we determined it was. And he said, "Do you like it?" I said, "Yeah." Well, I'm not thinking, the next question was, they don't want much money for it. I said, "How much?" He said, $95,000. Now, I don't know what it ultimately sold for. And I guess maybe that was the floor or perhaps the opening bid they were looking for, the auctioneer. But incredible. I mean, it just kept on going, man, one after another in that room full of those vehicles. And the Vicari auction folks do a fantastic job. That auctioneer, he was talking some kind of fast, which is what auctioneers do. Really cool, though. What a shot in the arm for the Mississippi Gulf Coast economy, as well as the entire state. Also benefits to a great extent as people travel through it. I don't know that I've ever seen, and I've been to that Coliseum a lot for events, I don't know that I've ever seen the parking lot quite that full, to the point where I was told they had to close the gates, couldn't allow any more traffic in. That's kind of unusual. And we had a couple of guests that couldn't get to us, that were unable to come on the program. I'm glad I got there about 7:30, 8 o'clock. Was able to get, after driving around a bit, honestly, a parking spot. I did notice signs directing traffic to off-site parking locations close to the Coliseum there, but it's just an indication of the interest there is. The amount of folks who, I guess, would be...
Well, it's also the growth of that auction, because, I mean...
It's true.
I'm fairly certain there have been auctions in years past, but you go back far enough, and the vast majority of transactions that occurred at Cruising the Coast were, hey, I like that car. Has it got a price on it? And just person-to-person private transactions where there wasn't a whole lot organized, from what I understand. I don't think there were auctions in the beginning. I don't think it was nearly as big. So
no, I think you're right.
They didn't have a need for an auction.
I think you're absolutely right, but clearly, certainly, the Vicari auction folks have changed that. It is incredible. And a whole bunch of people there. I don't know if you could see it on the video, but on one end of the conference center there, which is a big room, is where the stage was, the auctioneer, and then the items being auctioned off in an area between that stage and a bunch of bleachers set up inside and tables. And, of course, if you're a bidder, you had to get the credentials indicating that you're a bidder, and you could make your way to that area and participate. But, it was incredible. It was really fun to watch that. And I guess a bunch of money changed hands throughout the auction. By the way, my wife asked me this question. If
they're saying the pink Cadillac's not a lot and it's $95,000,
exactly.
Fair chunk of change.
That's exactly right. There was a vintage Mercedes. I want to say $400,000 is what people were saying. It may have been the most expensive vehicle in the lot.
Was it a Gullwing?
No. This was like a 48 or something like that, in pristine condition as well. I saw it on the floor. I don't know much about it beyond that, honestly. But it did have like curved sideboards with what I recall is a piece of metal affixed on top of the sideboard where you're supposed to step your feet, to enter the vehicle. It's pretty cool, honestly. So one thing my wife texted me about yesterday is curious as to whether or not sales of goods in an auction are subject to sales tax. And in the research I did, they are subject to standard state of Mississippi sales tax. So a bit of a shot in the arm there as well for the municipality from the diversion of such sales taxes. So, but overall, just a great event for the state of Mississippi. Certainly, more specifically, the concentration there on the Gulf Coast, and just my walking around in the evenings, my nightly walk. Clearly, the hotels were full, the restaurants were full, the streets were congested. People lining the streets as late as 10, 11 o'clock at night in their lawn chairs, just taking in the scenery of those gorgeous classic vehicles. Really ought to be proud here in the state of Mississippi that so many people are attracted to our state as a result of this idea hatched by Woody Bailey and others on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. You know, they had no idea it was going to grow to the scale it is today. He expected north of 10,000 vehicles registered. You heard him on our show Wednesday say, 9,300 at that point, I believe. And so you know they were going to get over that. We got Caleb Sailors from the news department at 11:20 and Professor Christopher Green. He's going to talk to us about the new Supreme Court term. He comes on at 12:05. Stay with us. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Let's go.
Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. That's Cream. That's 67, 68, something like that, I think. So
66.
66. Missed it by a
Written in
year.
66, released in 66, became a hit in 67.
Okay. Makes sense. Yep. They were kind of part of the acid rock scene, I think it's fair to say, from that period. Cream. See, wasn't Eric Clapton? Was it him?
Yeah, it was early Clapton.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Unbelievable. In fact, that's him singing, I think, on that song, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's handling the lead vocals. Well, there's a bit of exuberance in Israel. The ceasefire has begun.
No, it was Jack Bruce.
Okay, right. I think we looked that up before, and they do sound quite a bit alike there.
Yeah, Clapton did Cream songs 4 Until Late, Strange Brew, Crossroads, and Badge.
Okay.
Whereas Jack Bruce did the seemingly more popular songs of I Feel Free, White Room, and Sunshine of Your Love.
White Room, certainly one of the acid rock tunes. I wonder if Clapton sings a little background on those songs, though, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. The ceasefire has begun, and you've seen video, photos of the reuniting of some families. Partial withdrawal of Israeli troops starts a 72-hour window for the release of the remaining hostages. So the president has certainly delivered. And you know, I started thinking about why he succeeded in this, and he's certainly to be big-time commended for it. However, the Nobel Peace Prize goes to a Venezuelan opposition leader. Some on the left say, oh, yeah, Trump only did this to win the Peace Prize. He's been doing this for a while. He's been working on this for a while. He just didn't wake up this week and say, hey, wait, there's a Peace Prize being awarded later this week. Let's see if we can get this done. That's just horse hockey.
I think Biden might have been the only president since Reagan to not have a photo op signing of some accord or treaty or something between Palestine and Israel.
Yeah.
I remember in elementary school when Bill Clinton was president, and the teacher wheeled in a TV for us to watch him and Arafat and the Israeli prime minister at the time sign a peace accord. Yeah, that lasted all of, 6 months?
That's about right, as I recall.
So I don't have high hopes for this one. I mean, yeah, get the hostages home, get the remains of the victims home, but I don't see it really lasting.
Yeah, I agree. But there's a victory in getting the hostages home and the remains, right, as well. I mean, because they were using that as a negotiating tool, which is insanity, that you won't return the remains of dead people to their families. I can't even
I'm just
comprehend.
cynical after like 8 or 10 different peace accords and treaties and ceasefires and all this kind of stuff that nothing ever sticks.
They can't be trusted. There's absolutely, you're right about that. And I agree, but some success I think we at least have to recognize here in getting the hostages returned, and at least for now, a ceasefire. Hopefully it will stick. But I think the president looks at things that, unlike other career politicians, he looks at things that he believes problems that need to be solved, and he doesn't accept that there's no sense in working on those that can't be solved. And he puts ideas into action, shall we say. Now, would this have happened under a President Kamala Harris? No. I don't think she knows how to handle those situations. I don't think she would be respected. I think Donald Trump negotiates from the position of strength that he should, which is this is the most powerful nation on the country. On the planet. But when figures like Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, other Democrats are in constant apology mode for America's might and exceptionalism. I'll never forget Barack Obama in his early days removing the bust of Winston Churchill and bowing lower to the Asian leaders when he met them, and just other thing, apologizing, the apology tours it is known today for American exceptionalism, and that should never, ever be the case. And this president understands the position, the status, the power of this country. He doesn't abuse it. He uses it to the benefit of Americans and the world, and I believe that's what this is. Just simple as that. When you spend a career, as those Democratic figures I just cited do, bashing, demeaning, belittling, castigating, all the other words, excoriating the very nation they represent, it's kind of hard to go to the table and get anything done with foreign leaders. They just can't accept the fact that this really is a pretty good place. So many of them want you to believe we're still back in 1860, as you know, and they point to that. And they would consider the fact that the vast majority of people in this country oppose males participating in female sports and using their locker rooms and bathrooms of girls and women to be an indicator of just how inhumane, right, our country is. That we don't have our borders wide open to let anybody in as they see fit. And then spend a bunch of money to provide them government-sponsored services. They would say, well, that means we're not a good country. It's just insane the way they look at things like that. Their deference to criminals, to illegals, pointing to other countries as being superior to ours. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. But I really do think that this is a president that understands the strength in negotiations that this country has, and I like it. Now, right now, I need to report to you that the markets have turned negative after being in the green earlier today. turned negative in a big way. And that's because China has placed restrictions on rare earth exports. They're trying to negotiate with what little leverage they have. As a result, rare earth companies in this country are seeing their stocks surge. But the president, as a result of China's action, is now threatening retaliation in the form of much higher tariffs on Chinese imports. So the Dow now down 420, and the NASDAQ down as well. A minute ago it was 385. Let's see where it is now. Yep, 439. So it continues to sell off. This is not good. This is not good, and I just don't see any resolution to this trade war with China in the offing. I hope so. And I know the president feels like that, again, we can hold out on this and things will be better on the other side, and I hope he's right. But it's painful. Now, you have to acknowledge the markets have had a tremendous run this year, and investors have benefited, those with retirement investments and 401k instruments, et cetera. They've benefited. Our PERS program has benefited because of the returns produced in the equity markets. Hopefully this is just a blip. But it just doesn't seem like China is interested in negotiating in anything that would be viewed as favorable by the president and our negotiators. So that's definitely a problem that's going on right now. The shutdowns, day 10 of the shutdown, it's easy to keep up with the days because it happened on the 1st of October, right? So day 10 of the shutdown underway. No,
and half the country hasn't noticed at all.
That's exactly right. There are reports that there are some economic pains that are starting to be felt. Air travel in particular, taxpayer services, national parks. I mean, so if any of that is something that you are participating in, that you're encountering, you're feeling some pain. And I've talked to some businesses who've talked about some of the federal filings they're required to complete. They're unable to do that. Taxpayer services, if you need the IRS for anything, you're not going to get in touch with them because some 34,000 IRS employees, which I consider a good thing, by the way, have been furloughed and sent home. About 40,000 are on duty getting ready for next year's filing season. So that's a problem. And there are food programs that are at risk. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From the Seabrook.fm is with Gerard Gibert.
It is
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Don't you know that I'm loving you in a God?
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays with a little iron butterfly. There you go. Man, oh man, oh man. Nobody has a clue what that song's all about. Lots of speculation and opinion. But I don't know that the writers ever, the composers, ever came forward and said, yeah, this is what the underlying lyrics message is. I don't know that that ever occurred. It's about 20 minutes, isn't it? It takes one side of an album. I think I'm exaggerating a bit, but it's pretty long. There's a drum solo that every aspiring drummer in my day had to master as well. Not terribly hard, just a lot of licks you have to memorize.
Apparently, according to the bandmates of one Ron Bushy, the drummer.
Okay.
The song's title was supposed to be In the Garden of Eden.
Ah.
But the song's writer, Doug Engel, was drinking heavily while composing it.
Now imagine
and
that.
slurring his words while dictating the title to the drummer, Ron Bushy.
I love it. Oh, me. So, just wanted to pass this on. We were talking about the old government being shut down, and I know a lot of people feel like, yeah, let it keep going. And maybe we'll clean house and streamline government. You should know, however, that at first, little background. What's at stake here is the appropriation by the Congress, the funding by the Congress of only the discretionary functions of government, which are roughly half defense, and the other half every other federal agency and all the people that work in it. And that amounts to about 25% of total government outlays. 25%. The rest of it requires no action by government. It's on autopilot. It's statutory. It's called mandatory spending. But at least half of it, it looks like half of government appropriations on the discretionary side have passed in the Senate. This was yesterday. It was actually last night. Have passed in the Senate and will be headed to the president for enactment. And that's the military, the Department of Defense funding that we're talking about. It passed 70-20. So that tells you that 17 Democrats, now I haven't checked to see, but maybe Rand Paul didn't vote for it. He might be the lone Republican that dissented and joined the other Democrats in opposing it. But it did pass. And again, this would provide authorization of funding for the United States Department of Defense and everything underneath that umbrella. So that's the good news as far as opening up the defense aspect of government and ensuring that those who are in our armed forces are accommodated with the necessary federal resources. Here's the bad news, guys. And I predicted this. It's $924 billion. Now, why is that bad news? How many times have you heard from Washington, talking mainly about Republicans, we got to return to pre-COVID spending levels? Have you not heard that? Sure. You know what the defense budget was in the year 2019, fiscal year 2019? Actually, fiscal year 2020.
$720 million?
$650. So, we're not going in the right direction as far as returning to the COVID era. Right? So, $270 billion more going to the Department of Defense. Typically, when you look at discretionary spending, it's usually half and half. Half to defense and half to what's called non-defense domestic spending. Now, I don't know where the Congress is going to land on that other half, the non-defense half. But if it ends up being equal to the defense spending, which is typical, that would put us at $1.850 trillion. That is an increase of $500 billion since the pre-COVID era. We're not remotely close to getting back to pre-COVID spending. In fact, we're going in the opposite direction. If I'm not mistaken, defense spending for the fiscal year 2025 was $850. So this is a $70 billion increase. This rhetoric you're hearing from Washington about reining in excess spending, trimming deficits, paying debt, it's horse hockey. The numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. This is a mammoth annual defense policy bill And while I think you and I would agree, and most of our audience would agree, yeah, that's a core function of government. That needs to be financed. It needs to be appropriated. It's an appropriate use of taxpayer money. What we disagree with is the way in which the Department of Defense has handled the monies we've sent them in the past. Still to this day, unable to count for a whole bunch, right? Have yet to...
Can't even say, well, that's in a bucket we don't talk about. That's just, we don't know where it went.
Literally don't know where it went. Trillions we're talking here. So when does it stop? When do we get serious? Was this necessary? And I'll be honest, I'm not smart enough to know what is necessary in terms of the dollar amount to fund the defense function of government. And of course, keep in mind that the leader over there in the Senate of the powerful Armed Services Committee is none other than Mississippi's Senator Roger Wicker. He serves as the chair. And he secured this agreement to vote on 17 standalone amendments in a package of nearly 50 less controversial amendments. Well, that's the way the sausage is made. I don't have a problem with that. Let me read to you his quote about this NDA. It's called the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA. Quote from Senator Wicker, "We simply cannot delay this process any longer on the Senate floor." He said that on the Senate floor. "Let me make it clear, if we do not bring it to a floor vote today, this matter will not have time for deliberation on the Senate floor, and we'll have to basically pretend that we're having a conference between House and Senate members. And a very small group of senators will have to write this bill and bring it to the floor for final passage. That's not the way this ought to be done." So they voted throughout the night, last night, and they got several amendments passed, offered by both Democrats and Republicans. I'm looking at a long list of all these various amendments. So this thing's got to go to conference and get. I think so, Rhino. I can't remember if the NDAA was passed by the House, this version that the Senate just passed. I believe this came out of the Senate, if I'm not mistaken, and still requires House vote approval. And this is brand new news, so I apologize for not having that information available to me right now. We'll look it up for you. But it looks like we're on our way, because I know that the House did pass 3 of the 12 appropriations bills on the floor, sent it over to the Senate. I'm not sure if this is one of them or not. But the government remains shut down. I know you're looking that up for us. Yeah. So the House version of the NDAA, they did pass one. I was right. So I think they got to go to conference. It had a top line of $893 billion. This one is $81 billion more, the Senate version of it. So the fact that they amended it that way suggests to me, Rhino, they got to go back. $924 billion. So I said that wrong. So it's 31, not 81. 31 billion more. So they got to go back to conference, I believe, right? That's what it looks like. The House says, here's one, 893. Senate looks at it, says, yeah, we want to amend it. Here's our counter, 924. Boom. That means got to go to conference unless the Senate were to pass it as transmitted in accordance with the Rhino transmission procession there in the U.S. Capitol. But it looks like they'll hammer something out, get something to the president's desk. We'll reopen the Department of Defense. But still, guys, from a spending perspective, we're not reducing spending. The $2 trillion deficits will continue indefinitely. Stepping aside for a break, final segment, hour 1, is next from the Element Wealth Studio.
Are we going to do this?
Middays with Gerard Gibert
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
I'm in a hurry to
get things done. Oh, I rush and rush until life's no fun. All I really gotta do is live and die, but I'm in a hurry and don't know why. Don't know why I have to drive so fast. My car has nothing to prove. It's not you, but it'll do 0 to 60 in 5.2. Oh, I'm in a hurry to get things done. Oh, I rush and rush until life's no fun. All I really gotta do is live and die, but I'm in a hurry and don't know why. Can't be late.
From Fort Payne, Alabama, it's Alabama. That's a good tune. Christmas right around the corner. I love their Christmas song. It's good, isn't it? Christmas in Dixie.
Oh, yeah.
Can you still say that, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just checking. Oh, man. So we're back with you on the C Spire text line. Rhino was just talking about, we were talking about precious metals, gold and silver. And gold, of course, eclipsing the $4,000 mark. What'd you tell me about silver?
Yeah, silver hit $50 an ounce yesterday.
Wow.
It's down to like 48 something today, but
So here's the concern. When you see gold rising as sharply as it has here in the last couple of weeks, that's a very strong indicator of a recession. It doesn't guarantee it, but historically, there's pretty strong correlation between the two. So we need to be vigilant about that. I just hope we can get these trade wars behind us. I know a lot of people, including me, thought we'd have something on the books with respect to China. Of course, a huge trading partner for this country. And now they've doubled down and said, we ain't buying any of your soybeans. So I hate that for our farmers as well. And I hope we can come to the table and work something out. Because I think it is starting to wreak havoc in a lot of industries just because we've become so dang reliant on Chinese-produced goods and also precious metals. I think there are some solutions and alternatives there. I heard an interview this morning. I can't even remember the material. Honestly, it's something I've never heard of before, but apparently it's widely used in our country, and it's making some big business news today that a domestic company that has discovered whatever this material is. I apologize, I can't remember. There's so much news this morning. And they're going to start mining in this country to counter and hopefully eliminate our need to import. But that is one of the problems. There are some metals, right? Some precious materials only available we don't have in this country.
At scale.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I think that's what this guy was talking about is some focus to perhaps mine at scale to meet market demand. We were also talking about the Nobel Peace Prize going to a Venezuelan opposition leader, and you got some news on that.
Yeah, she put out a post talking about how she was gracious for the award and all the typical boilerplate stuff, but she did write, and this is Maria Corina Machado. She wrote, quote, I dedicate this prize to the suffering people of Venezuela and to President Trump for his decisive support of our cause.
How about that? That's pretty cool. How about that? That's I would agree. Now, I'm with you in that hopefully this thing will stick. That hasn't been the case in that region. They tend to sign agreements and sort of wink and cross their fingers behind their back and all that sort of stuff. Louis from the 662 says, Gerard, two taxes which I not only object but don't understand, property tax and capital gains tax. Is there any other item that you can purchase and be taxed yearly for as long as you own it? Also, why am I being penalized for having the forethought to invest for my retirement? Well, a couple things there, Louis. I don't like those taxes either, and I have advocated for ending capital gains taxes for 30 years. And not just because that affects me personally, but because I think it would spur investment and innovation and economic growth and job creation and all the other positive benefits of innovation and investing and risk-taking in a responsible way. And so I don't like that, but think about this.
But if you get to keep more of your own money that you worked for, then the government doesn't have more money to redistribute.
Absolutely right. And the Democrats, in fact, and Kamala Harris, this part of her tax plan was to tax capital gains for certain taxpayers at ordinary income rates. I think if you had more than $1 million a year, it's always targeting the upper incomes, right? Of course, those are the ones who do most of the investment and the risk-taking, I know, second-order thinking, and would be affected by capital gains. Way more, no disrespect, Louis, to the average person with their 401k plans. I get it. I think it should be across the board. As far as property taxes, I don't like paying property taxes either, but it is a primary source of income that funds school districts and county infrastructure, roads and bridges, county law enforcement, and then to a smaller extent, municipalities. So we could certainly eliminate that, but we would need some source of funding for local governments, because that's what property taxes are. Those are local taxes to fund the local functions of those, or the functions of those local governments. The only other thing you could do, I guess, would be to impose income taxes in counties and cities. Blue states and cities have those. I wouldn't support that. Or it'd have to be sales taxes, and nobody likes that. So you tell me, what's the solution? We're coming back after Fox News and SuperTalk News.
Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
Today on In a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar, you'll hear part 2 of an interview with Mississippi music historian Wesley Smith. And don't forget, high school football, it's in full swing, and SuperTalk Mississippi has you covered. You can catch a local game on just about every SuperTalk Mississippi station. Plus, you can stream a ton of games and get up-to-the-minute scores from across the entire state by going to supertalk.fm/highschool or by clicking on sports on the SuperTalk Mississippi app. And check out the Farm Bureau Insurance Company Scoreboard show at 10 p.m. on Friday nights anywhere you listen or watch SuperTalk Mississippi. So a couple of weeks ago, I had to replace a couple of tires. I had a little brake notification. Brake pads were wearing out. Took my vehicle in, got the brake pads replaced. No big deal. About right for the mileage I have on it. And the technician noted that I had a couple of tires that I probably ought to change out. And they had a sale going on, so I did that. All right, so I'm driving between Moss Point, after the show Tuesday at Moss Point, over to Biloxi to our hotel, the Hotel Legends there. Great property, by the way. And on the interstate, I-10, it's raining. There's a patch of rain between Moss Point and Biloxi there, and I'm in it. And, man, I'm having a hard time. The car is what's the word for it when you're hydroplaning on the water there. Didn't feel right. So
Getting squirrely.
Yeah, I had to slow down to about 40. And it was raining hard, but, I mean, not to a situation where I've ever had to slow down to that. And it was still fishtailing a bit on me. It concerned me. So I brought it in this morning, and the 2 brand new tires are like worn. Like you're seeing the steel belts on the edge there on the wall. You know what I'm talking about there? Where the curve starts to go from horizontal to vertical. And but the folks were fantastic. I just want you to know they're going to replace it under warranty. And so the technician said, that must have been Stevie Wonder Day that did the alignment, because they attributed it to like what they call a towed alignment.
Yeah.
And so no big deal. They're going to take care of my tires and realign the vehicle, and all under warranty. And they were so apologetic. And, of course, they provided me a loaner. And I'm not far from the dealership, as you know, and it's an EV. Those things are really nice. It's hard to get used to the just lack of sound, and you got to know how to turn them off and on. You tap the brakes, and they come on. Tap the brakes, they go off. But to absolutely make sure it's totally off and not drawing any power from the battery, there's literally an on-off switch, and I was able to do that. Fantastic vehicle, though. I mean, I enjoy. It's the second time they've given me a loaner nice enough to do that. But these things happen, and I think they expected I was just going to wear them out. And I'm headed to Oxford tomorrow, and I certainly didn't want to drive up there. And I'm fortunate that nothing happened, honestly. But, look, it happens. And, I've always thought that the mark of high-quality customer service, it's not in delivering service where there's never a problem, because that's impossible, virtually. It's how you respond when there is a problem. That's the true test of quality customer service, of a well-run, managed company that truly cares about their customers. It's how they act when something goes wrong. Because things are going to go wrong. Things just break. Things mess up. Humans make mistakes. You can have all the controls, all the processes, all the systems you want. It just happens, and that's understandable. It's what you do when it happens and how the organization responds and manages those situations. That's the true test and mark of a good company. And in this particular case, I give them high marks because they did exactly what I thought was the fair and reasonable thing to do. And again, apologize. I just want to pass that on. So, Tim and McGee says, Rhino, sure proud y'all are under the same roof. I wish you two were on 6 hours a day. Nobody else comes close to y'all. Of course, I got enough sense to know y'all don't want to be on for 6 hours. Well, first of all, Tim, very appreciative, of course, of you being a loyal listener and for the very positive, kind feedback. Even though we're only on the air 3 hours a day, as Rhino can attest, we're getting ready for you for the next day between those 3 hour sessions. And I want to believe that's what hopefully makes the show one that folks want to tune into, is that we do cover a lot of stuff here, but it takes a lot of effort to get ready. Good news is they're fantastic tools that are all available to you and I for little or no cost, that we can peruse and review and research and analyze and study and consume to bring that information to you guys and try to touch on things that you're already hearing a lot of stuff from the mainstream news. And I know we got a lot of folks that only tune into us, expect us, to be their source for information and news, and we're honored. We appreciate that. But try to maybe give you some information and share something that perhaps the mainstream folks won't pick up. And that's kind of what we do here, and that's what we pride ourselves on. And hopefully that's the experience that people are finding as well. This student loan forgiveness stuff, oh boys, back on for 2 million borrowers. That according to this report in Business Insider. The Education Department is resuming student loan forgiveness processing for borrowers on income-based repayment. Eligible borrowers received emails that their servicers will process relief over the next several months. Those who want to opt out of the relief must do so by the 21st of this month. So, income-based repayment. It's structured as a percentage, right? Your income, your principal and interest, a percentage of your income. By the way, that's exactly the way the ACA subsidies work in those Obamacare exchanges, which is at the heart of this government shutdown.
But if I'm not mistaken, it's not blanket. It's for those that are not behind on any payments, haven't missed any payments, are obviously not in default, and you have to have paid for a certain amount of time to have been eligible.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Well, so that's right. The emails are going out. The subject line in the emails, you're eligible to have your student loans discharged. Said the department is working with the borrower's servicer, this is what the email says, to process the relief over the next several months. So
that all got started in the American Rescue Plan.
In ARPA, that's exactly right, under Joe Biden. And so here we go again. And then you remember something went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, the president can't do that with a swipe of a pen. So this saga of student loans continues. Man, oh man, that's kind of where we are on that. The also going on, the members of the Trump cabinet, of course, are regularly referring to the shutdown as the Schumer shutdown, and Small Business Administration, the executive director there, actually it's Kelly Loeffler. Is she the secretary? I think so. So she's talking about how this is affecting processing, the shutdown is affecting processing of SBA loans and SBA guarantee.
Kelly Loeffler is the United States Administrator of the Small Business Administration.
Yeah, that's why I hesitated. I didn't think it was a cabinet post. It's an administration. I think the SBA, if I'm not mistaken, is part of the Department of Commerce, right, where we do have a Secretary of Commerce. That's Howard Lutnick. So they've been forced to freeze the loan guarantee programs that fund, wow, I didn't know this, 320 small businesses every day. So there's a bunch of entrepreneurs across America who were set to close on their loans and start new businesses or expand operations of existing businesses. So they're in limbo. So they're being affected by the shutdown. And the administrator, as you indicated, Kelly Loeffler, used to be a senator, of course, from Georgia, was defeated, lost her seat there. She says this is starting to affect them. And she's blaming Chuck Schumer for it. Isn't that nice? The Republicans blame the Democrats. The Democrats blame the Republicans. It's politics in Washington. Coming right back with Caleb Sailors.
Hey.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
Awesome. On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Thank you so much for being with us today. And we welcome now to the Element Wealth Studio, Caleb Sailors, Multimedia Journalist, SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Rhino bringing us one of the more obscure Steely Dan songs this week. Trying to test my knowledge. That was Kings, though. That's a good one.
Yeah. All right, what's going on in the state of Mississippi that the news department is covering and expects to cover next week as well? What's going on, Kevin?
What is it going on and what aren't we doing? We've been scrambling this week. It's been a good week, but kind of what you've been doing. Cruising the coast is going on in Mississippi. People are getting to see thousands upon thousands of antique and vintage vehicles lined up all across the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And you got to go on what I would call it like a coastal tour this week. Seemed like it was pretty fun getting to see all the vehicles, talk to all the people down there, even some of our lawmakers on the coast having a good time. But Gerard, for those who can't make it to Cruising the Coast, who do enjoy antique vehicles, the Mississippi State Fair is still going on, and there is a huge, antique car competition at the State Fair in the Trademark Building, and the State Fair will be running, as Agriculture Commissioner Andy Gibson's calling it this year, the Great American Mississippi State Fair in partnership with the America 250 celebration. It is ongoing at the State Fairgrounds until Monday. Monday will be the very last day, so if you're looking to make it out and you try to go on Tuesday, well, they'll be packing up and the carnies will be getting ready to leave. So you got to get there by Monday if you want to go and look. All the rides, all the entertainment shows, concerts, everything. Still got plenty of opportunities. And I talked about this on Good Things with Rebecca Turner on Tuesday, but for those who weren't tuned in, the two Mississippi museums is also doing free admission this weekend as part of the State Fair too. So if you're wanting to go have fun but also learn something, head on over to the two Mississippi museums. Gerard, you've been there. I've been there many times.
It's great.
They're thorough, excellent, fantastic, and you will learn a lot about our state and about the civil rights movement and how Mississippi played a crucial role there. So that's still going on, the Mississippi State Fair, but transitioning to a more, not serious, but a deeper topic, a venue change has been granted for Tim Harrington Jr., who is accused of killing Ole Miss student Jimmy J. Lee in 2022. Remember, that was a big story, made national headlines. Of course, we've been covering it extensively. Harrington was initially tried last year, and his trial resulted in a mistrial on an 11-1 vote. The holdup was that there wasn't a body linked to the alleged crime. Well, the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks extended its deer season this year, and you're wondering, Caleb, how does that play into this? Well, in one of those extended dates, these hunters in Carroll County found what appeared to be a human remains and a necklace that said J. Lee on it. The forensics experts, state medical lab, the crime lab, assessed the body. It was Jay Lee's body. And so now Harrington has been scheduled for a retrial. Well, his attorney, Ephraim Sellers, who's also representing Jackson City Councilwoman, former City Councilwoman Angelique Lee, in her case, he requested a change of venue, saying that there was extensive media coverage. There was so much going on in Lafayette County. Oxford is where the initial trial was held, saying there's so much hubbub around this in town, there's no chance this kid can get a fair trial. So initially they were going to get jurors from other parts of different parts of Mississippi or different parts of the area without disclosing where they were from. The initial trial, the jurors were from the Forest County area, and I'm sure they're probably still going to get jurors from different areas, but the trial will be moved to Madison County. So it's going to be held in the central area of Mississippi, just about 2 hours south of Oxford. And that way it'll not be at the scene where the crime allegedly happened, because he's accused of killing Jay Lee in Oxford and then dumping his body off in Carroll County.
Gotcha.
And so, the retrial will take place in December.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
What about Mike Hurst?
Yeah, he's JT Mitchell got that story up for us, but he's going. I'm not saying moving on. He's still leading our GOP here in Mississippi, but getting to be the legal counsel for the National Republican Party. I haven't done deep research on that. JT Mitchell handled that story, but it's cool for Mike,
really
getting a good opportunity for him and to brand himself nationally and put Mississippi on the map too in the National Republican Party. And Mississippi has been a Republican stronghold for a very long time, and so I guess the national GOP is like, all right, well, we may need some Mississippi flavor in our movement. Drawing another cool story that's happening in Northeast Mississippi. Ohio-based manufacturer Acceleration. This company designs the interiors of data centers and makes modular equipment that it installs in data centers. Well, it took over a Mississippi company, took over Steel Pro in Houston. Going to use the 42,000 square foot center in Houston to manufacture a lot of its equipment to install in its customers' facilities. Well, we've got this major data center craze in Mississippi. I call it data center mania with AWS and AVAIO and Compass, etc. I mean, what data center is not wanting to come to the Magnolia State right now? Well, Acceleration, one of its customers is Amazon. So it's fitting that it'll open up shop here in Mississippi, and I would be shocked if the two data centers in Madison County aren't installed with equipment from Acceleration, which is good, though, because that's more Mississippi jobs. We're fueling the local economy here. We're scratching backs in both directions, right? Helping the manufacturing industry here in Mississippi while also supporting the data center, which is creating numerous jobs. I mean, you could probably tell me the exact figures there, but and I think that's a good thing as we continue this data center push to go local.
Yeah, I think that's what gets lost, I should say, in the discussion is the cascading effect of this major hyperscale campus of data centers in Madison County, for example, with AWS on 2 sites. There are so many other supporting businesses that are adjacent to that all benefit from that, and that's not just during the construction period, but post the construction period, such as the manufacturing of a lot of the infrastructure that is non-IT infrastructure required to build out the IT and support the IT infrastructure installed in there.
For those who haven't been to the mega site in Canton, it's not just one big computer. This is a massive warehouse-style facility. Well, you got to have the exterior of the building, the interior of the building built, the beams, everything. That requires Mississippi labor, and why not insource that? Have that stuff made and manufactured here locally.
12 250,000 square foot buildings at the Canton site,
right?
And 4 are going to be built at the Ridgeland site. So, and my understanding is that some of those are going to be online by the end of the year.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Because we were out there last year for the ribbon cutting ceremony. Yeah, last year for the ribbon cutting ceremony, and it wasn't anywhere near finished. And I can imagine they're working tirelessly because they're wanting to get this up and running. But this company, too, Excelevation, also works with Google and other major players. Yeah. So, again, it's going to be using the Mississippi facility, Houston, 42,000 square foot facility, not just for AWS, but
that's
for
awesome.
Multiple companies. That's huge. It's a huge win for the Mississippi economy. Gerard, I don't know if you watched any Thursday night football last night, but Jackson Dart, a guy that you got to watch a lot for 3 years, I got to watch a lot at Ole Miss games, led the Giants. You know, everybody was picking the Eagles to win last night, the defending Super Bowl champs. Well, Jackson Dart proved the doubters wrong, and his supporting cast was limited last night. He had one player with more than 5 receptions on his active roster last night, but he led the Giants to a 34-17 victory over the Eagles. He had 195 yards in the air and a touchdown. Also logged 58 yards on the ground and a touchdown on the ground as well. But Cam Scadaboo, the rookie from Arizona State, which Mississippi State fans are probably shuddering thinking about him after how he ran over the Bulldogs last year. But he was kind of a shining star for the Giants, too. Had 3 touchdowns, 98 yards, and the Eagles just couldn't tackle him. Mm-hmm. You know, he'd always break through the first line of defense. But on the other side, on the losing side, A.J. Brown, another former Rebel, had a pretty good night. Had 6 receptions for 80 yards, 9 targets. He was the team's second leading receiver. And so a good Ole Miss flavor last night in the Thursday night football game. And then Southern Miss had a win last night. The Golden Eagles tried their hardest to lose that game, got outscored 28-10 in the second half. Hunter Dawkins has a good recap of that game on our website. But yeah, it was funny. The Southern Miss took a commanding lead, a 28-7 lead at halftime. They got outscored 28-10 in the second half, but held on by the skin of their teeth to escape Statesboro, Georgia, with a win.
We got just a little time here. We're going to a break, and then we'll let you go. The lottery, second chance.
Yeah, 8 players on second chance, so about a little under $1 million, $980,000 dispersed among the 8, and the specifics are on our website too. But yeah,
pretty cool.
That second chance is really cool because if you don't win the first time around, you're not out of it.
I enjoyed your article about that second chance Mississippi Lottery. Yeah. Appreciate it, Caleb. Thanks for coming in, man. We're coming right back after this break in the Element Wealth Studio.
Here you go. I wanted to do this for years. There you go. How do you feel?
From the Seabrook.
Attention, adoring fans! It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. Thanks for joining us today as we wrap up a week. A week with the federal government being shut down. On the C Spire text line, Ben from Madison, I understand farmers are going to need a bailout for this season's lack of markets, but what are the farmers going to plant next year if no new markets open up? In my opinion, farmers don't want bailout after bailout. It's not in their DNA. I totally agree. They don't, Ben. They are, for the most part, hardcore capitalists, honestly. And they just want to grow a good crop and sell it and serve society, global society. But with the trade war going on and China shutting down its purchases of a big crop, certainly here in Mississippi, and that's soybeans, and China has historically been a big customer for those soybeans, and right now they're not. Yeah, that's causing problems, and the president has indicated that he's probably going to sign off on a bailout, and that's been estimated at between $10 and $30 billion. Yeah, I agree, Ben. I don't think the farmers want checks. They just want to sell their goods, their product, their yield, and be fairly compensated for it. I think that's really what they want. At this point, doesn't look like that's going to happen, and we are staged to see a bailout be passed by the White House and issued to farmers. And I'm not sure if that requires congressional approval and involvement as well. There are lots of opinions on that, honestly. Also on the C Spire text line, Mose says, Gerard, don't forget the way Washington, D.C. does budgets, staying the same as a cut, just keeping spending level. They figure 7% increase a year to be keeping pace. Yeah, so first thing I'd say, Mose, is what budget? There's no budget. It's just an appropriation. It's what there's no formal $7 trillion. The White House is required by law to produce one. They send it over, but it's not acted on. And so the more than two-thirds, roughly three-quarters of government that doesn't require congressional action, it just keeps on going. And increases occur in those programs based on what the code says, what the law says. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, debt interest, of course, is all based on the terms of the bonds and the notes and the bills the government sells, to fund operations. It's the debt the government sells. All that's dictated by those documents, agreements, law, code, etc. It's the other portion that the Congress does work on that is stipulated by law, but it's a short-term law. It's these appropriations bills. So they don't really have any sort of built-in increase that they deal with as part of those appropriations, but it's whatever the members of Congress can agree to, honestly. I'm just pointing out, and I know that's what you're talking about, Mose, is that all the rhetoric coming out of Washington about, we got to rein in the spending. I mean, I hear it over and over and over and over again. And it's Republicans generally pointing the fingers at Democrats about that. And sure, the Democrats are culpable and they are accountable to a lot of the crazy crap they've come up with that we spend money on, there's no doubt. But you got to admit, when you see a significant increase in defense spending, which generally is supported by Republicans, including our president, as is the case in this bill the Senate just passed that funds the Department of Defense, now headed to conference with the House, and it keeps going up year after year. You do start to scratch your head as to just how serious they are on the right side of the aisle about trimming spending. And I know they'll tell you, well, this is necessary. And I'm not arguing with them. I'm just saying that, well, that's what the people on the other side of the aisle say about their pet projects and their favorite spending targets as well. This is necessary. Everybody's got a sacred cow. All 535 members of the United States Congress, consisting, of course, of the House and the Senate. And they all got something they want to spend money on, and that's how I believe we ended up with what is now about to be $38 trillion in federal debt. It's something I don't think we'll ever pay down or off. And a lot of folks want to know, well, when's the day of reckoning coming? I don't know that it is. I don't know when that would be. I know that as long as it's not causing too terribly much pain to people, most people don't care about it. And that's kind of where we are now. You know, when it starts causing pain, and usually that pain comes in the form of inflation. And certainly we've had some of that pain the last few years, especially after Joe Biden took office and enacted the American Rescue Plan, which, by the way, included the enhanced subsidies in the ACA exchanges, which is what the core argument is, the principal argument is that's got the government shut down. So, interesting how all that works for sure. And I think most people are just kind of tired of it. They're tired of the status quo. They'd like to see more action, more material action along those lines in terms of reining in spending. But, I hear you, Mose. Mike from Columbus says, I don't like either. He says, so when can I expect no taxes to be deducted from my check while it's shut down? Well, that's all computerized, so the computers are still whirring, and your payrolls from your employers are still happening, and so taxes are still being withheld from your pay, and they're still being remitted to the Treasury. And all that, by the way, is electronic. So it doesn't require a great deal of human intervention in that. Have you heard of the new Democrats' simplified 1040 form? 2 lines. How much did you make? Line 2, send it in, says Rusty. Yeah, that's probably what they want. Kyle in Indianola says, live in an apartment and you don't pay property taxes. Not true, Kyle. Not true whatsoever. The property owner pays property taxes, and I promise you they've got that factored into your rent. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so I know there's a lot.
It may not be a line item on your monthly rent bill, but yeah, right. It's factored in.
Yeah, it's not.
They're not eating that cost out of the kindness of their heart.
100%. So it's in there. I'd actually be more in favor of a local sales tax, says Paul in Meridian, instead of property tax. It would hit everybody. And here's what I would say to that, Paul. If today, here in the state of Mississippi, there was an announcement that, hey, look, we're going to eliminate property taxes, but in lieu of that, we're going to increase sales taxes. My belief is that the reaction would be from those who, generally on the right, would say, well, no, that's just shuffling the deck. That's just a trade. You're making one tax and hiding another, and you're being disingenuous. It's a tax swap. Isn't that the terminology they like to use? That's what they'd say. And I'm not saying they're wrong. All I'm saying is, okay, well, school districts, counties, cities, they got to get some revenue from somewhere, because if you eliminated property taxes, every school in the state of Mississippi would fold, public school, and every county would virtually shut down, and there would be a significant decrease, if not complete crash, of municipal services, because that's their primary source of revenue. Now, we could argue about where that revenue ought to be raised, and I'm with you on that, Paul. I'd be happy to pay a higher sales tax if it meant that my property taxes would be ended. But you got to think about all the people that don't pay property taxes, at least as Rhino's pointing out, directly, and all of a sudden they go to the store and the cost of everything is up because of sales taxes. They would not be happy about that. That would be viewed as a regressive tax, meaning, hey, people that have enough money to own property, they're paying taxes. Those who don't have enough money to own property, though, as Rhino points out, they're accounting for it to some extent in their rent. I don't know that you'd see landlords reduce the rent just because property taxes went away, right? I just doubt that would happen. So the net effect would be they're paying more out of pocket overall because of the increase in sales taxes. in consumption taxes.
The silver lining on that dark cloud, though, is that starts a conversation about shrinking the size of government to reduce that sales tax.
Totally agree.
But it would be short-term pain for a lot of people.
No doubt about it. So could we be more efficient in the way we spend money in K through 12 education?
Undoubtedly.
Absolutely. 100%. Enough that we could do without the revenue that comes from property taxes that goes to school districts? I doubt it. I mean, that's just my gut feel. I haven't done the math on that yet, but it's something to explore. I'm more for consumption taxes over property any day. Coming right back, final segment in this hour.
Poly up. Come on. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Little David Bowie, Let's Dance. Good tunes there. So, yeah, just talking about this idea of shifting from property taxes to consumption taxes. And the same thing came up when I remember the legislation was introduced in it would have been the 23, I believe, legislative session, or was it 22? I can't remember. I think it's 23. And that was the bill that would have eliminated the income tax in a fairly short order, but in order to do that, it would have increased sales taxes. And that was extremely controversial here in the state of Mississippi, and there was a lot of pushback on that. And ultimately, that legislation did not pass. There was a bill that did pass that didn't fully eliminate the income tax, but rather it did eliminate the 4% bracket and then reduce the 5% bracket. That's all income, taxable income over $10,000, taxed at 5%. It reduced that down to 4% over a 3-year period. And in fact, we're presently in year 2 of that. 4.4% is the rate applied to all taxable income above $10,000. That will go to 4% next year. But you remember that bill had an increase in sales taxes in it, and people went crazy. That's a tax swap, which wasn't true. But
that's the argument you get from the right. From the left, you get the argument that it disproportionately impacts low-income families.
Absolutely correct. 100%. You're exactly right. And that's what I meant, by the way, just to explain. That's what the term regressive means when you're talking about taxes. We have a very progressive tax structure in this country. In fact, it is more progressive than in any other country, certainly in the West. And what that means is that taxes, especially on income and capital gains, they increase at a much sharper rate to the point there, as you go through the income ranges, which essentially means that way more of our taxes are paid by upper income than folks in the lower income scale. Progressive in nature. In most of Europe, as you know, Rhino, the taxes are more evenly distributed. That's largely because they pay a hefty tax for their free health care, right? I mean, it's 17, 18% of their income for the so-called free health care. You know, the free health care, you have to wait until you die before you get it. That model, that's the old socialized health care. Health care is a right that the Bernie Sanders AOC people want.
Yeah, we can tell that's a broken arm, but the earliest we can get you in the x-ray is 6 weeks from now. So,
right. Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a sling.
So I was all for that bill in 23. I thought that was a good bill, and because I like the idea of getting rid of the income tax in a rapid period of time, short period of time, at a rapid pace. And we were able to do that because sales taxes were being raised. So we were transitioning from income to consumption taxes, and that's always been considered a more conservative and a more fair approach to taxation than the very progressive income taxes that we have in this country, both at the federal and the state level to some extent. But, man, that got met with a lot of resistance, as the saying goes. And so what we ended up with, well, okay, let's just kind of get rid of the 4% and reduce to 5%, call it a day, and hope that economic growth will offset the loss of that revenue. And thus far, that has been the case. Revenues for the first fiscal quarter here in the state of Mississippi did top sine die estimates, I think by about $24 million. So that's good news. We're still producing surpluses. Now, we did pass legislation, you guys know that will phase out the income tax eventually, but it's over 14 years. Had we increased sales taxes even by a percentage point, a percentage and a half, I think is what was contemplated in the legislation in 23, we'd be getting rid of that income tax in a much shorter period of time. Now, the other big pushback, as you know, Rhino, you get are from the state's retired population, because their income is not, generally speaking, the income that most retired folks live off of is not subject to state income tax in the state of Mississippi. That's a tremendous benefit for retirees in the Magnolia State. So an increase in sales tax is not popular among them, because that would essentially mean their tax burden would go up, although a very small amount, I think, at the end of the day. But that's a little bit about taxes there. We're going to step aside for Fox News and SuperTalk News. Professor Christopher Green is after that.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply, and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays, coming at you live from the Element Wealth studio on this
Friday, y'all.
All right, so the markets are really taking a pounding. The NASDAQ down 622. That's 2.7%. The Dow down 632. Man, when you see a 6 handle out there, you know you're looking at a big old sell-off. And that's because the president announced the possibility of imposing extremely high tariffs, strong tariffs on China, because China doesn't seem interested in negotiating a trade deal, and has talked about perhaps withholding some of the precious metals that we import, just imposing an embargo on the export of those materials into this country. So that's causing a big old sell-off. Investors just nervous about this. You got that, and of course, the government still being shut down as well. Thompson Greenwood, I'm going to tell you right now, buddy, that's a dumb idea. And the idea is we should end payroll deductions as a way for people to advance their income taxes to the federal government. I assume you also mean, Thomas, that we should, because you said payroll deductions, so you mean the OASDI and HI deductions as well. That would be old age and survivors disability insurance, also known as Social Security, and HI, hospital insurance, also known commonly as Medicare. So if we did that, we don't have enough people that we could hire in this country to go chase all the deadbeats that would not remit their taxes. And we're talking about, to a great extent, small amounts that add up to a lot. And so that's why this notion of, just requiring people to write a check to pay their taxes. And by the way, don't forget, a lot of these people don't have bank accounts. Yeah, and allow taxpayers to remit itself. It would plunge us further into debt, dramatically increase our deficits. It would mean that we'd end up with people who get to an age where they cannot work anymore, that they're seniors and they're sick, they're ill, and they will have never paid in, and we would be still taking care of them as a society, because we're not going to let them just die on the streets. It's not going to happen in this country. It's a terrible idea. Terrible. Why doesn't Trump just hit China with 200% tariffs and crush their economy? They can withstand it, and that's exactly what's being talked about. This is on the C Spire text line. The president is talking about a significant increase in tariffs on China in retaliation for their unwillingness to negotiate and their announcement that they're going to withhold the shipment of some precious metals that we import into this country. So I don't necessarily think that imposing such tariffs would crush their economy. And I assume you mean 200% tariffs on what we import. What it would crush is the American economy. And that's what investors fear right now, is that the president's going to impose even higher tariffs, and that's going to send the economy into a tailspin, thus market sell-offs. Now, we all know the president uses tariffs as a negotiating tool. I think he's frustrated that Xi Jinping in China is just not responding as expected, as thought. Tim and McGee says, now I know why Thomas has never run for office. So, look, it's one of those things that sounds good on paper. I get it. He believes that, if people just saw what they're paying in taxes, because they'd have to write a check for it rather than it being withheld, where maybe they don't recognize it, don't notice it as much. I guess he thinks that would change the way they vote or something. I don't know exactly. But consider this. Half the households in this country don't pay federal income taxes. So it would be Social Security and Medicare are what would be hurt. And all that means is that current enrollees, current recipients of Social Security and Medicare benefits, they're the ones that would get hurt. Not the people who don't follow the law under the Thomas's proposal here to go remit those taxes. It wouldn't hurt them. It would hurt the people currently receiving benefits. And in the case of Medicare, that means the doctors and the clinics and the hospitals and the other healthcare professionals that rely on Medicare payments to cover the cost of their services. That's what doesn't get thought about, Rhino, when you think about these twisted ideas. You think you're really putting it to those people, and you're not. You're putting it to everybody else is what you're doing. It just doesn't work. So let's see what else we got on the C Spire text line. I'm active duty and working on my second week of not getting paid, and we won't get paid on the 15th. I've been in the military for 25 years and have saved enough to float for a while. I'm more worried about the junior enlisted not being able to meet their household needs, and that's being discussed. You're right about that. That is being discussed quite a bit in Washington as well, and that's why they're trying to get this National Defense Authorization Act I just talked about enacted into law, because that is roughly half of discretionary spending. It's half of what is presently shut down. So that would essentially reopen half of government, if you will, that being the defense function of government. But we got to get the House back up there, Rhino, to get in conference and do whatever they're going to do with the Senate bill that passed the Senate. Since the Senate didn't pass the bill that went through the House and got sent over, I guess the gargoyles are just passing each other in the halls there, right?
And it would be good for us to at least put out a public service announcement if you are in the military, serving currently in the military active duty. There are military aid societies, I believe is the correct umbrella term, like the Air Force Aid Society and the Army Emergency Relief, I want to say it is.
Okay.
And then I think the Navy and the Marines have a team up. It's Navy and Marine Corps Relief Society. All of those different places offer paycheck protection with zero interest loans for active duty members and families.
Okay.
And on top of that, you have connected credit unions like Navy Federal and USAA and Penn Fed's one of them, and there's a couple other ones that also offer paycheck relief programs with zero interest loans. So there are options. It's not going to be fun, but there are options to help hold you over.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you passing that on. I wasn't actually aware of that. So, but that sounds like a great idea for those who wear the nation's uniform. We certainly don't want them to go without pay. I mean, that's terrible. And I agree with the Republicans in that. I wish the Democrats would have just signed off on the continuing resolution, and then let's go debate, deliberate these issues where there's lack of congruence, mainly the ACA enhanced subsidies. That's the primary issue. Rather than hold up the government. And I know it's
in simplest terms, the Democrats want to reinstate law that was repealed in the One Big Beautiful Bill.
Well, yeah, that's the other aspect. The primary is extending the ACA subsidies that are set to expire, which didn't get addressed in the Big Beautiful Bill, and which Republicans have indicated they're not interested, for the most part, in extending. Though this week the president and Republican leadership have said, yeah, maybe we need to take a look at that. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene, as I talked about yesterday, she's got issues with not extending the Joe Biden era. It's just mind-boggling, enhanced subsidies. But you're right, the Democrats, also want to repeal mainly the Medicaid reforms that were included in the One Big Beautiful Bill, such as having to check in twice a year instead of once a year to confirm your eligibility, which I don't think whatsoever is an unreasonable request. You know as well as I do that a lot of people get cleared, they get in the program, and then a week later, something changes in their life and they're no longer eligible. And we don't find out for a year, so they get benefits for a year. And then we've got the situation where lots of states, California is the one that really sticks out, they pay for Medicaid for illegals out of their own pockets, and the federal government, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Republicans are trying to address that. Even though the federal government's not paying for it, they just want fewer illegals in the program. And they wanted to reduce the federal match to those states. And the states say, oh, no, we need that money, the blue states. Coming right back.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite! On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. What really pisses me off, this is on the C Spire text line, is that the military stops getting paid, but those idiots in Washington continue to get paid during a shutdown. I did some research on this. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's actually a provision in the Constitution. And so simple law, I don't think could change that dynamic in that during a shutdown, members of Congress continue to receive their pay. But here's the problem, and I hear you, and it is maddening. Here's the problem. Both sides just blame the other. Just blame the other. So it's not me. I'm not the one that made it shut down. No, it's them. Reminds me of the old days. Folks in my age range remember this. Whenever you'd lose off-air television service, Rhino, and the television station would put a screen up, and it would have like somebody shrugging their shoulders, with their hands up. Hey, it's not us. It's not you. It must be them. So what that screen would say. Yeah, it is disturbing that the folks who honestly deserve more than anybody to be paid by Uncle Sam and the taxpayer are the folks, again, the people who are serving our military, but yet the people who enjoy the life of a member of Congress are still getting their money. Yeah, I hear you. And I would tell you that a lot of them, I believe, would say, yeah, that's honestly not right either. They would agree with you, but again, as I recall, that's something we would have to amend the Constitution over. And I don't think that that's going to happen, honestly. Man, oh man. States are increasingly depending on federal dollars, according to some recent reports, and we're really at the mercy of Washington. Twice as much revenue is going to the states as did 35 years ago. So volatility in Washington, such as a shutdown, means that they're more vulnerable to such shutdowns. Mississippi, the most reliant of the 50 states on the federal dollars, almost 3-to-1 in terms of the dollars we send versus the dollars we receive. And that primarily comes in the form of Medicaid. That's the largest program in the state of Mississippi, government program, when you consider the combined spending of both the federal government and state government. It's approaching $8 billion a year. Just for contrast, the state's general fund budget is a little over 7, I should say. So it's a problem, no doubt, that we've become more accustomed to the federal largesse. Nearly half of the states, 23, are more dependent on federal funds than they were during the height of COVID. That's amazing. Virginia, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, and Rhode Island nearly doubling their dependency on federal taxpayer dollars. I think Virginia, to a great extent, because of its location close to Washington, as you know, man, oh man, that place is awash with a lot of well-to-do folks that all receive their income, earn their income from the federal government in some way, shape, or form. 23 states taking a greater portion of their total budgets from federal sources today than they did during that. It's really an abdication of responsibility, says someone, a senior executive vice president of the State Policy Network and a senior fellow at the Center for Practical Federalism. That's interesting. That's Tony Woodleaf, one of the authors of this report from the State Policy Network. So this is fascinating information, in my view, that doesn't get talked about a lot here in the state of Mississippi. But we have to be cognizant. I think we have to recognize just how reliant we are on federal dollars. And in fact, if the federal spigot were shut off, we would not be in a position where our budget's balanced, which is a requirement of state law, and we also would not be able to eliminate our income tax, as is in process. So the state, I believe, should work towards reducing its dependency, and I know the governor believes this as well, its dependency on federal monies coming in to the state. And I believe the only way to do that is to grow the state's economy and get more people working and more people earning incomes where they're not as reliant on federal programs. And improving our health outcomes is part of that as well. Let's see here on the C Spire text line. When the country was founded, says Mose, and for many years after that, congressional members did not get paid a salary. They were paid per diem for their time traveling to and from the Capitol. And you know, Mose, that it's a great point. And something I think we've touched on before here is that we have certainly diverted quite considerably from the role of the concept of public service, certainly at the federal level. I know I've said it before. It's worth repeating. In those days, in the early days, the idea was, hey, it's your turn. Leave the farm and your family. Your neighbors, the churches will take care of your farm and family. While you're away, go take care of the people's business for a short period of time, earning, as Mose says, a per diem. And then, after you've spent a little time taking care of the people's business, get your rear back to the farm. And like they say in the barbershop, next. That's the way it's supposed to work. And the idea that literally our founders thought, hey, people are interchangeable, right? They're not going to divide themselves the way we have and become so polarized. They didn't envision that. Now, they understood the notion of legitimate debate. And even in the early days of our founding, there was some dissension and some disagreement, but
you had the Whigs versus the Democratic Republicans.
Exactly, but not to the level it is today. No. I mean, let's also say that I think fairly, Rhino, there was more agreement on matters than disagreement, right? The disagreements were more on outliers. Today, it's just fundamentals. The Democrats want to turn the place into a communist wasteland, and the Republicans certainly don't want to do that, and anybody that would say that's not paying attention. I know there are some who would indicate that. But when you see a defense bill coming out that increases spending by $31 billion versus last year, you do wonder if they really do stand for small, limited government, as is consistent with the party's platform, and lower spending. But I think it's fair to say, however, that what the Democrats have leaned into is a bunch of social nonsense that I think is at odds with virtually every Republican. It certainly is the president, who had to issue a series of executive orders day one just to strip all that crap out of government, starting with, hey, we only believe there are two genders, two biological sexes. We had to start with that. It's pretty fundamental. And the Democrats still push back on that. I shared, was it yesterday or the day before, McBride, the representative who's a transgender, who said that Donald Trump supporters are just bizarre and weird or something like that. This is coming from a person.
So says the dude named Tim wearing a dress.
Unbelievable. That truly is unbelievable. But I wish we could find more common ground. I really do. It does appear in the Senate, at least in this Defense Authorization Act, and it also happened in the House. There was common ground on that. The Democrats and Republicans said, yeah, we need to fund the government, the defense portion of government, I should say. So that's, I guess, maybe some bright spot, I guess, that you could point to. We'll see what happens when they get in conference, if they can get something going. But yeah, highly polarized is our society and our government. Mose, you're right, though. That was the idea. It truly was considered public service, short-term public service, I might say.
And the first salary was implemented in 1850 at $3,000 a year, which in today's money is about $130,000.
And they make $174,400. Wow. And that's since 2010. Coming right back.
From the Seabrook. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. Tim from McGee said, when I was talking about the screen the local channels would put up on your television back when you only had off-air signals, then you had to have an antenna either on your television, or you could afford it. You could put one up on your house that would give you even better reception. And so sometimes you just lose signal, or they would not be able to broadcast. And maybe the network, might be them, might be on your side, but if they could still communicate with you, they'd put that screen up that says, not us, it's not you, must be them. And Tim said, yeah, that was in between turning the antenna on the outside to get better reception for your TV and those 3 channels. That brought back some old memories, yeah. And for a while there, here in Jackson, in the Jackson area, Tim, it was 2 channels. WAPT, the ABC affiliate, I believe began in 67, 68, something like that. And prior to that, we only had an NBC and a CBS affiliate. We didn't have an ABC affiliate locally. And they would carry those the CBS and the NBC affiliates, some ABC programming, but we didn't get the dedicated 3 network channels until WAPT Channel 16, which broadcast on the UHF band. So you had to have, I may have it backwards, so you had to have a UHF antenna attachment to your television to receive that signal. And then the other 2 were VHF. Is that very high frequency, ultra high frequency? I can't remember what that stands for, and I may have had that. I may have that backwards. The CBS and the NBC were one band, and I just know that when the ABC affiliate came, it was a different one. So yeah, man. Mike from Columbus says, God, you brought back the memories of my dad's antenna rotator. Are you looking it up? What does it say there? When
WAPT came about in 1970 on UHF.
70, okay. So I missed it. And it was UHF. I did have that right. I missed it by a couple of years, 70. You know what I think I got wrong is that it seems like they went all color in 68, that most of the programming. Because I just remember at that age, of course, I was, like many of my era at that age, enjoyed the Saturday morning cartoons. And when we got to color TV and they started broadcasting the cartoons in color, man, that was a big deal. Like mesmerized by, wow, Underdog in color, Bugs Bunny in color. You ever watch some of the old Bugs Bunny episodes? They're not politically correct necessarily, are they?
Well, it depends on where you watch them as to whether or not you're going to get the politically correct edit.
I didn't know that. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
They're not editing Bugs Bunny, are they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my gosh. Like Elmer Fudd, he would be politically incorrect.
Yeah, you'd be lucky to see that on broadcast TV.
Oh, that's terrible. Nobody got hurt.
Usually, if you do see it on like a streaming platform, it's going to come with a little title card at the beginning saying the views of this program are outdated and not with the time, or something like that. Some boilerplate nonsense about being offended by Bugs Bunny.
I hate hearing that. I really do. Because it was innocuous. Was it not? Did we all survive that? I think so. Does it not seem like that the more we've focused on trying to limit some of that stuff, we've gotten more violent? It's kind of like the war on drugs. We're taking more drugs than we ever have. and we spent a whole bunch of money trying to coax people into not taking drugs and trying to shut down drug making and distribution. Doesn't seem to be working, does it? Spent a lot of money on it, though. I'm not sure what the answer is.
Whereas there was a point in time where all the drugs were legal and we didn't have drug problems.
That's just totally true.
I mean, I say didn't have drug problems. It was, what was it, To Kill a Mockingbird that had the old lady that was trying to get off laudanum?
Yeah, I remember that.
Which that was just basically alcohol plus morphine.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. That was the painkiller of the day.
Whew. Why do I feel like that'd like be poison to the body?
It wasn't great for you in the long term,
Okay.
but it would definitely knock out pain like nothing else available at the time.
It makes sense. Every house had a pipe wrench, not recommended during a storm on the C Spire text line. That's absolutely true. On the 662, we could get Memphis then, turn it in and get Tupelo, West Point, double the channels, and I miss it. It's pretty cool.
I mean, you could still get a digital antenna and plug it into the coax in the back of the TV and hit scan, and depending on where you are in the Magnolia State, you can get 30, 40 channels.
So true. Well, what I remember as a kid is I loved the Green Hornet. And I want to say that was an ABC show. And I may have this wrong, but I just remember trying to rig the antenna on my little black and white TV when I was a kid to get the Greenville. Wasn't there a Greenville station? And I was trying to get seems like there was, trying to get that station so I could pick up the Green Hornet, which was in black and white. Ironically, the Green Hornet was broadcast in black and white. I thought the Green Hornet was a great show. Seemed like it was a Friday night show as well. I believe my dad had kids in order to have someone to send outside on cold days, sit outside and turn the antenna pole. Absolutely right. Langston says, I fought with my sisters about who was going to actually get up and change the channel. Yeah, man, I remember it. Man, the Memphis wrestling was the bomb every Saturday. Unbelievable. Mike from Columbus says, like Gunsmoke, give me a break. Yeah, I think he means not politically correct. Yeah, I agree. Kevin from Brandon says they banned Speedy Gonzalez because of racism. Oh, geez.
I think they tried to. I remember that happening, and then a lot of Mexican Americans got upset because they're like, wait, that's our representation. What are you doing? We like Speedy Gonzalez.
Exactly. It was great. Man, oh, man. All the war on marijuana, and nobody has still died from an overdose yet to this date. Yeah, but I think it's hard to say, Paul, that Paula Meridian wrote that it hasn't caused some problems for people that truly are addicted to it. And look, it depends on the person. Some just handle it better than others. They're just wired differently, physically and mentally. One thing that is a concern, you've seen lots of folks talk about in the medical, psychiatric world, et cetera, is that the potency is just up considerably, right, of THC, the active ingredient.
And it severely impairs the development of the frontal lobe if taken or smoked at an earlier age.
Yeah, not a good thing. WABG, Greenwood, Greenville. Okay, that's somebody just sent that from the 662. I think I got that right, that I was always trying to get the antenna to position, to pick up, and it was blurry now. It wasn't great reception, but I could at least hear and watch the best I could the Green Hornet. And when we go visit my aunt in New Orleans, my father's, which we did on a regular basis, my father's sister, man, it's like in heaven because they had all three affiliates, of course, stations for those in the city of New Orleans. And, man, I had to clear the deck to watch the Green Hornet. Unbelievable. Johnny Quest, yeah, remember the cartoon, says Brian in Clarksdale? Absolutely. Wasn't that great? You still get that, right, on the Cartoon Network? I follow them on Facebook.
Updated version in the late 90s, 2000s.
It's a great show. I mean, it really was. It's well done. It was kind of cool. Always look forward to that. I have a digital antenna at my fish camp, on the C Spire text line, and it picks up 43 channels. I love it. And Johnny Carson comes on late night. Wow, on the Nostalgia channel. I didn't know that. How cool is that? I didn't know there was a Nostalgia channel. Where have I been?
Yeah, it depends on where you are in the state as to which channels you can pick up. But
Okay.
I mean, like, say, for instance, in central Mississippi, you've got, I don't know if it's the Nostalgia channel, but you got Me TV, which is pretty prevalent.
I got that one, yeah.
It's got a lot of the old shows on it. They got a new one, Me Cartoons, which is a lot of the old cartoons.
Yeah.
You got
FE
Grit,
TV.
I don't even think I've got FETV
Yeah.
on mine, but Grit shows the westerns, and Laugh shows comedy TV shows. Like there's a lot wider variety than you would imagine just over the air.
Okay. That's on off the air. I didn't know that. Well, I think that's because, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of that is provided by the local network affiliates, right? I think that it's going through their systems. Just different channels, but using their systems to broadcast, because everybody doesn't have that ability. If it's coming over the air and you're able to get it, it's one of those guys, right, that has the licenses to broadcast over the spectrum and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so just reminiscing a little bit about the old days, the old off-air. Man, how that has changed is just incredible. And some of the old cartoons, somebody just said Gary from Tissue Bingo. I remember that one, Heckle and Jekyll. I remember that. That was so great. The two birds. Were they magpies, I think? Coming right back with the final segment.
You know what that means.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
We'll do it live.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
The great Joe Walsh. On the C Spire text line, Amazon is taking away 007's gun on promos. Yeah, they did some other suppression as well, right?
No, if you go try to watch any of the old James Bond movies, the movie poster, where he's usually posing with a gun, they've digitally edited out the gun from the poster.
I think, didn't they take his cigarette out too in some of them? Yeah, so I don't know why they think they have to do that, honestly. I don't know that accomplishes anything. I mean, have we gotten to a point where we just cannot discern between Hollywood and acting and drama and entertainment and reality? Is that where we are?
It's been headed that way for a couple generations and a few decades now.
That's sad. I mean, it really is. Totally sad.
And what's sadder is the population as a whole seems to be still taking cues from Hollywood, even though Hollywood is a cesspit of nepotism and incompetence at this point.
That's true.
You look up half the famous people that are famous for movies you've never seen or shows you've never heard of, and then you look up who their parents are, and if they don't have the same last name, they're still kids of somebody that from that part of the world in that industry.
Unbelievable. Well, I think it's crazy, honestly, and I just think that once again I believe it's a function of lack of guidance, lack of a functional home, where you understand that when you grow up in a nurturing, loving environment where you're getting guidance and mentorship from parents as a youngster in your home, that just kind of makes sense. You seem to get it. Yeah, this is make-believe. This is entertainment. This is real. And somewhere along the line, I guess when you don't have the benefit of someone to develop you, to nurture you, to mentor, guide, I guess you just get confused. I mean, I don't know. It's just mind-boggling to me that we have to take the gun out of 007, not understanding this is make-believe here. This is drama. This is entertainment. And just appreciate it for what it is, that we've gotten to that point. That you people just are influenced by that somehow, I guess. By a character? A fabricated character? That's sad. Really is.
I mean, just look at how up in arms people have been about J.K. Rowling's. I mean, it's basically a feminist viewpoint from a decade ago, but now she's considered evil because she fights for the privacy and security of all women's spaces, and that flies in the face of the nonsensical woke mob and their transgender ideology.
And it's been absolutely castigated and to a great extent ostracized by the industry, has she not?
But to that point, you had a larger number than you can count on your fingers and toes that I've seen examples of, and there's probably more that just haven't felt the need to put it on the internet, where people were so enamored with the Harry Potter franchise, they had symbols and characters and things from that franchise tattooed on their body. And then, oh my goodness, J.K. Rowling's a trans exclusionary article feminist. She hates trans people. She's just evil. So they have to go and get a tattoo cover-up of their Harry Potter tattoo.
No,
they don't want to be seen as, oh, you're supporting J.K. Rowling.
I've read her stuff, and look, she doesn't hold back. She really doesn't. She's just telling the truth. You can't tell the truth anymore, right? The truth,
especially not in England.
Yeah, no doubt about that. There've been had this for today, but running out of time. There have been more stories about crazy stuff happening with respect to their dumb laws that honestly are anti-free speech. Don't they have bigger fish to fry than to run around and arrest people for posting tweets they don't like? I guess not.
It's almost as if it's not a uniquely American thing that the people in power with, the power to actually make change and make laws, that those people are disconnected from reality and insulated from the consequences of their actions.
Yeah.
That's not just a U.S. federal government problem. It seems to be a problem in governance around the world.
It sure does. Just watching what's going on there. Final little point to pass on to you. Since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA reports they've received over 37,000 requests for new chapters on campus. The University of Tennessee at Chattanooga had to step in and overrule the student government at that school who voted to block students from starting a TPUSA. Bravo to the Tennessee administration, University of Tennessee Chattanooga administration. Back with you Monday. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.